Okay, LXL, I need your help with this. This is not a copy pasta. This is a long read. But I feel like my safety or well-being could be very well depend on this. This is video game related, specifically Majora's Mask. And this is the creepiest shit that has ever happened to me in my entire life. Having that said, I recently moved into my dorm room, starting as a sophomore in college, and a friend of mine gave me his old Nintendo 64 to play. I was stoked, just to say the least. I could finally play all those old games of my youth that I haven't touched in at least a decade. His Nintendo 64 came with one yellow controller and a rather shoddy copy of Super Smash Bros. And, well, beggars can't be choosers, needless to say it. Didn't take long until I became bored of beating up level 9 CPUs. That weekend, I decided to drive around a few neighborhoods, about 20 minutes or so off campus, hitting up the local garage sales, hoping to score on some good deals from ignorant parents. I ended up picking a copy of Pokemon Stadium, GoldenEye, F-Zero, and 2 other controllers for $2. Satisfied, I began to drive out of the neighborhood when one last house caught my attention. I had no idea why it did. There were no cars and only one table set up with random junk on it, but something sort of drew me there. I usually trust my gut on these things, and got out of the car, and I was greeted by an old man. His outward appearance was, for lack of a better word, displeasing. It was odd if he asked me to tell you why he was displeasing. I couldn't really pinpoint anything. There was just something about him that put me on edge. I can't explain it. All I can tell you is that if it wasn't in the middle of the afternoon and there were only people within shouting distance, I would have not even thought of approaching the man. He flashed a crooked smile at me and asked what I was looking for. And immediately I noticed that he must have been blind in one of his eyes. His right eye had that glazed over look about it. I forced myself to look at his left eye instead, trying not to offend, and asked him if he had any old video games. I was already wondering how I could politely excuse myself from the situation when he would tell me he had no idea what a video game was. But to my surprise, he said he had a few ones in an old box. He assured me he'd be back in a jiffy, and turned to head back to the garage. As I watched him hobble away, I couldn't help but notice what he was selling on his table. Littered across the table were rather particular paintings, various artworks that looked like ink blots. Curious, I looked through them. It was obvious why no one was visiting the guy's garage sale. These weren't exactly pleasing. As I came to the last one, for some reason, it looked like Majora's Mask. The same heart-shaped body with little spikes protruding outwards. I just thought that since I was secretly hoping to find that game at these garage sales, some freeman bullshit was projecting itself into the ink blots. But given the events, what happened afterwards, I'm not so sure now. I should have asked the man about it. I wish I would have asked the man about it. After staring at the Majora-shaped blot, I looked up and the old man suddenly was there again, arm's length in front of me, smiling at me. I'll admit, I jumped out of reflex and I laughed nervously. as he handed me a Nintendo 64 cartridge. It was a standard gray color, except someone has written Majora on it in black permanent marker. I got butterflies in my stomach, and then I realized what a coincidence this was, and asked him how much he wanted. The old man smiled and told me that I could have it for free. That used to belong to a kid who was about my age that didn't live here anymore. I thanked the man, and the man smiled at me and wished me well, saying goodbye then. At least that's what it sounded like to me. On the way in the car ride home, I had a nagging doubt that the man said something else. My fears were confirmed when I booted up the game. To my surprise, it worked just fine. And there was one file, simply named Ben. Goodbye, Ben. He was saying goodbye, Ben. I felt bad for the man, obviously a grandparent, and obviously going senile. And I, for some reason or another, reminded him of his grandson, Ben. Out of curiosity, I looked at the save file, eyeballing it. I could tell he was pretty far in the game. He had almost all the masks and 3-4 remains of the bosses. I noticed that he has used an owl statue to save his game. He was on the 3rd day at Stone Temple, with hardly an hour left before the moon could crash. I remember thinking that it was a shame that he'd come so close to beating it, but never finished it. I made a new file named Link out of tradition and started the game, ready to relive my childhood. With such a shady looking cartridge, I was impressed at how smoothly it ran. Literally, just like the retail copy of the game, save for a few a few minor hiccups here and there, like textures being where they shouldn't be, random flashes and cutscenes and at odd intervals, but nothing too bad. However, the only thing that was a little unnerving was that at times the NPCs would call me Link, and other times they would call me Ben. I figured it was just a bug, a fluke in the program, causing our files to get mixed up or something. It did kind of creep me out about a while, and around that time I beat the Woodfall Temple, I regrettably went to the save files and deleted Ben, hoping that would solve the problem. It did, and it didn't. Now the NPCs wouldn't call me anything. When my name should be in the dialogue, there was just a blank space. My save file was still called Link, though. Frustrated with homework to do, I put the game down for a day. I started playing the game again last night, getting the lens of truth, and working my way towards completing the Snowhead Temple. Now some of more hardcore Majora's Mask players know about the 4th day glitch. For those who don't know, you can Google it, but the gist of that right as the clock is about to hit 000000 on the final day, you talk to the astronomer and look through the telescope. If you time it right, the countdown disappears, and you essentially have another day to finish whatever you were doing. Deciding to do the glitch and try to finish the Snowhead Temple, I happened to get right on the first try, and the time counter at the bottom disappeared. However, when I pressed B to exit the telescope, instead of being greeted by the astronomer, I found myself in the Majora's boss fight room at the end of the game, staring at Skull Kid hovering over me. There was no sound, just him floating in the air above me, and the background music, which was regular for the area. It's so creepy. Immediately, my palms began to sweat. I was about to read the reset button when a text box appeared on my screen. You're not sure why, but apparently you have a reservation. I instantly recognized that text. You get the message when you get the room key from and you in the Stockpot Inn. But why is it playing here? I refuse to entertain the notice that it was almost as if the game was trying to communicate with me. The only thing I can describe the way I felt having the ceiling in the depression and a powerful scale. I am normally not a depressed person. But the way I felt here was a feeling that I never knew existed. In such a twisted, powerful presence that seemed to watch over me. I appeared in some weird Twilight Zone version of Clocktown. I walked out of Clocktown as you normally do. I walked out of the clock tower as you normally do when you start from the first day. Only to find all that the inhabitants were gone. Usually the fourth day glitch, you can still find the guards, and the dog that runs around and outside the tower. This time they were all gone. What replaced them was the ominous feeling that there was something out there in the same area as me, that was watching me. I had 4 hearts and my name and the hero's bow. But at this point, I wasn't ever considered for my avatar. I felt that I personally was in some kind of danger. Every now and then, I would hear the faint laugh of Have Salesman in the background, just quiet enough if I wasn't sure of hearing it, but loud enough to keep me determined to find him. I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure. I looked in all 4 zones of Clocktown, only to find nothing. No one. Textures were missing. West Clocktown had me walking on air. The entire area felt broken. Hopelessly broken. As a reverse song of healing repeated for what must have been the 50th time. I just remembered standing in the middle of South Clocktown, realizing that I never felt so alone in a video game before. As I zoned in and ran towards the pool, that's when it happened. Link grabbed his head, and the screen flashed for a brief moment to have my salesman smiling at me. Not Link. Me. The Skull Kid scream playing in the background. And when I returned, I was staring at the Link statue from playing the song Elegy of Emptiness. I turned around and ran back into South Clocktown, and to my horror, that effing statue followed me. And the only way I could compare this was like the weeping angels from Doctor Who. It was like that thing was chasing me, or I don't even want to say it, haunting me. By this point, I was on the verge of piracy, but not even one did thought of turning off the console occurred to me. I don't know why. I was so wrapped up in it. The terror felt so real. I tried to shake the statue, but it would literally appear right behind me every single time. Link started to begin to make a weird animations I've never seen him do before. He would flail his arms around or spasm randomly, and the screen would cut to have my salesman smiling at again for a brief moment before the face to face with that effing statue again. I'm going to have to end it off here. I'll see you in part 2 for the Ben Jarrett story. I hope you enjoyed. The song is not by me, and I will see you all in the next episode. Bye-bye.